The WAVES program is a program that is a kind of a child of all of these different organisations. We came together to develop a program in response to a problem that we all agreed and recognised was one that really needed challenging. And this is this feeling among the public of a lack of ability to influence decisions affecting their local area. So this really points to the kind of need for the challenge that Pratik was highlighting. One which is all about enabling the public to influence policy, to influence decisions within their local area. But there is a challenge for local policies and their ability, policymakers and their ability to do that. Often the challenges that we know local policymakers, local government are facing at the moment are really significant. There are constrictions on budget, but there are also huge challenges around planning, adult social care, navigating the introduction of lots of different local climate and traffic policies, some really difficult policies that require some strong and difficult conversations between and within communities to negotiate what the outcome of those challenges can be and what the policy should look like. But local governments lack the deliberative technology, the affordable, scalable mechanisms to facilitate the kind of deliberation that we know can really tackle these sorts of challenges. And so some additional challenges that we're aware of, effective deliberation, the kinds of citizens' assemblies that we recognise can be really meaningful and really impactful are incredibly expensive. They're very time consuming, but also they're limited to a small number of citizens, which means that the benefits of those conversations are often felt by a very small number of people. And so what we're saying here is that there's a real challenge in the affordability for effective deliberation, but also the accessibility of those deliberations to a wider group of citizens. And so what we're looking to tackle with that through our WAVES program, this innovation program, is the creation of replicable, cost-effective and meaningful alternatives that can include more citizens. And to do that, to facilitate that, we are adopting the use of deliberative technology. Our solution is a new local digital democratic process that we are calling WAVES, that we hope will enable participation at scale and in depth in an end-to-end deliberative process that will simplify and lower the costs and be facilitated by the provision of new technology, but also toolkits around how to use that technology. So not just open source technology being provided, but also the how-to around it, developed through the trial process. We hope that this will enable more citizens to participate, processes that can be run by local government that are more trusted and consensual. And so through this programme, we're working with and alongside local government to design this process, to design and refine and use WAVES. And so to explain that in a bit more detail and what I mean by that process, I'm suddenly not able to click, which is, oh, here we are. This is what we mean by the WAVES process. So this end-to-end iterative process of engaging the public in different ways. So at the very beginning of this process, one that can enable an at-scale conversation that then moves to an in-depth conversation with a much smaller group of people that moves back into an at-scale, back into an in-depth, and then a final vote at an at-scale level. But in order to achieve this iterative process that has feedback loops about how policy, how those deliberations, what results they have achieved at different stages. We're using different types of deliberative technology. So we have Remesh, which is our at-scale platform. This is much like Polis, the one that Pratik was mentioning earlier. But it's also slightly different, and that's called Remesh Side. This is a platform that Georgie will introduce to us, but also a piece of new technology that we're developing through the programme, which at the moment does not have a name. We may call it Bedrock. That's a name that we're currently testing, but it's the Chasm Tech tool, and this is a tool that we're developing in partnership with Chasm Tech through this process. And just to introduce a bit about what we're trying to achieve with that tool, I've just snuck this in here because Pratik was just mentioning something which sounded quite similar, so I thought it was nice to introduce it of what we're aiming to achieve. But with this tool, what we're aiming to enable is deliberation, but also participants, so our teams, but also participants in a deliberative process to be able to access the evidence discovery, to be able to synthesize evidence, to understand the policy in detail, and to be able to do that throughout the deliberative process. But also to be able to read the outputs of different stages of the deliberation too. And so this tool that we're building is one that will enable the structuring and summarization of really detailed documents in a way that we hope will be accessible both to deliberation teams and participants. So we're hoping to lower the bar or lower the lower the bar for just to really facilitate access to evidence so that as many people could participate in the detailed policy work and those discussions as possible. And so just to return to our team for the Waves programme, so I've mentioned Camden, a logo that is missing here because they're only recently recruited to be a member of our consortium is South Staffordshire Council. And they are a very different council to Camden. Camden, very urban, left wing, and one that has a lot of experience in deliberative processes and also technology. South Staffs is based in rural Staffordshire. It is more of a right wing council, and it will also be trialling this process with a very different policy area. So Camden will be developing and deploying the tool, the Waves process in adult social care. South Staffs will be looking at a local planning policy. And then our three tech providers and partners who are supporting this process, including SCI, who are the index partner as part of Waves. So I'll just hand you over to Georgie now. And Georgie, do nod when you want to click.
Okay, sure. So hi everybody. So my name's Georgina Denis. I'm co-founder and CEO at SCI. And I'm going to talk through our platform so you can understand how we're helping the Waves program with the in-depth deliberation. So SCI, or People Supported Intelligence, is a platform for participatory decision making. And what it means is that you can host a facilitated group discussion with hundreds of people that at the end of it is instantly analyzed to provide you with insights about how those hundreds of people talked about different ideas. And those insights then help you with your decision making. Can we click forward, Hannah? So I'm going to go through really quickly how it works. On your screen, you can actually see the product, the interface of the platform. But on site, you can create a discussion, provide more context and information about the topic and what you want people to talk about, and then publish it online and share a meeting link to invite people to take part. Move forward. People that join the conversation enter what kind of looks like Zoom in some ways, but it's an online meeting where the hundreds of people that have decided to join are broken down into small group conversations. So on your screen, you can see it's a group of 3. And in these breakout group conversations, they're just asked to talk about a set of ideas. You might not be able to see it on the screen, but for this example, the ideas are on the side. But they talk through ideas, share their thoughts, experiences with those ideas, pros, cons, the merits of them. But these ideas are either provided by the host. So I'd like you to talk about these 20 policy ideas, or they're actually crowdsourced from the participants themselves. So everyone that comes into the meeting can throw their idea into the pot to be deliberated over. And so we take hundreds of people, break them into small group conversations, and over rounds of conversations, what we're doing is taking this idea space and through deliberation, navigating through all the ideas, collecting how people respond to them, what they share, what stories they tell about those ideas. And we do it over a few iterations. So in the next breakout room, you'll speak to new people about new ideas, and we move forward that way. Hannah, if you can move forward. But once the conversation's finished, we analyze it to provide the host with the insights from that big group conversation so that it can support decision making. So what you can see on the screen is an example of one of our data stories. This was from a conversation where 121 people discussed what role should technology play in making your city safer. Can we move forward? But at SCI, what we are really keen to do is support scale, depth, and speed. So all of the big tricky things. But the way that we facilitate the conversations and the way we structure the conversations allows us to do this. So the example that I just shared was 121 people talking in breakout rooms. So you can imagine lots and lots of breakout rooms all happening concurrently in parallel. And over a number of rounds. But for the individual participant, it only took 35 minutes right? And this is something we're really, really keen on, is making sure that to reduce the burden of time on the people who are participating in these events. And over that 35 minutes in total, we collected over 7 hours of people talking about what role technology can play in making their city safer. And again, it's all analyzed once the conversation's ended, and we can provide you with bespoke analysis, a data story, etc. Just to kind of make sure it's helping to answer the questions that you need answering. If we move forward. So a bit about us as a company. So there are lots of collective intelligence tools, including some of the ones that Pratik mentioned and Polis. They're like fantastic tools to use, and you should, or I would recommend kind of like mixing and chopping and changing as part of a much wider participatory process. What we support at SCI is where it needs to be deliberative, where you need people talking to each other in real time, sharing their thoughts, stories, opinions with each other in an environment that makes it safe to do so. Online, so that you can reach a massive scale of people. And so with that, we are a deliberative technology, and we're part of the SAFE program, which is kind of like an incubator from the University of Southampton that's looking at the kind of standards for making sure deliberative tools deliver on the promise. And so here I've put some of them, and all of these are built in to our product. So there is time and space for silent reflection for participants. You're not constantly being kind of like exposed to other people's opinions. You have the ability to change your mind about what you're talking about. And we try and build a user experience that supports active listening, but also feeling heard, etc. So these are the safe principles that we work to with a bunch of other startups that have deliberative tools. We're all kind of made a promise to deliver on a certain standard with the tools that we're building. Hannah, can you move forward? And as well as a deliberative technology, we also are like a collective intelligence company, right? We do things that involve a group of people sharing their thoughts, their knowledge, the information they have, and using that together to make better decisions together. And so collective intelligence research really drives our design principles. So, for example, this is why our average conversation is about 150 people, because we hold conversations at a scale that makes it inclusive of a diversity of experiences, right? A really important part of collective intelligence. There are other collective intelligence principles that our technology builds on, but I won't tell you what they are because there is a cool game on our website, Hannah, if you don't mind changing, where you can learn what these collective intelligence principles are. So if you were paying attention, I've already given you the answer to one. Yeah, so we focus on deliberation and collective intelligence. I'll put the link to the game in the chat. And if you move forward, and here's a really quick kind of overview of our use of AI. So there's no AI before the conversation. So there's no AI recommending who takes part in a discussion, for example. And at the moment, we don't have any AI in the conversation. So deciding who talks to who about what ideas. However, we're really pleased to say that soon we'll have real-time multilingual translation, which means if everyone's speaking English, but I only speak French, I can receive the captions of what's being said in French. And we're also looking at using an AI facilitator in the conversation. This is under review. We're thinking about how, what, why, when, those kinds of things. So when it comes to AI, our AI is really after the discussion's finished, right? So it's helping the host make sense of all the 7+ hours of conversation around a topic. And we do that with lots of different techniques. Like we use RAG to kind of reduce the impact of hallucinations, and it's an approach to increase the accuracy of responses from our AI. We ground what our AI provides as insights in actual transcript, for example. And then we do a whole bunch of other cool statistics, just using statistical methods like measuring polarization and clustering and association of ideas and segmenting to say, did people under 24 talk about this topic very differently from everyone else? Those don't use AI. They use very cool statistical kind of methods, but that's how we analyze the discussion after the fact. And I think that's it from me. Over to Hannah again.
Lovely. Thanks, Georgie. So just so I appreciate we're a presentation within a presentation, but we thought it'd be really helpful just for you to get a sense of the different technologies and especially Xi, because it's just such a brilliant technology. But just moving back to the Waves program, we are currently in our co-design phase, so we're finalising the design of our Waves process. We're moving into our trials. So we start our trial with Camden very soon in July, and we'll move to South Staffs at the beginning of next year. But we will have a huge period of sharing what we've learned and the impact that we've had for the second half of next year. We also have a community of practice and a learning network for councils, but also anyone else that would like to follow what we're doing in more detail. That will be beginning on the 8th of July. So if that interests you and you would like to join that specifically to follow our progress in depth, do let me know. And we will also be developing our Chasm Tech tool throughout this period to be testing and learning. And the final thing, just to mention, there are some goals which I won't go into now because I think we're short on time. But these are the things that we're kind of holding ourselves accountable to that we'll be evaluating our impact against with some monitoring and evaluation. So that will be in our impact work that we'll be publishing at the end of in the second half of next year. So just to finish, I'll leave you with a QR code, which is where you can sign up to follow our work in a bit more detail. But also if you want to sign up to the Learning Network, that's a good place to start as well. I'll stop share. Let me just go to, there we go, there's the QR code. It came, and then I will, if anyone wants to do a quick scan or just take our link, and I'll stop sharing.